Human beings love one thing above all else, and that's other human beings. If they can find someone that they relate to, that they see themselves in, that they admire, that's their favorite person on the face of the earth, and they love spending time with them. So when that happens, when you have a platform that enables that parasocial relationship, then it becomes really easy for one of those individuals to tell the other individual, hey, I've been using this product, or I've been playing this game, or using this service. You should check it out.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Craft Podcast. Today, I'm really excited with our guest. He's Tips, who's a Chief Operating Officer for OTK. Welcome, Tips.
Nice to be here, John. Appreciate you inviting me.
So, you have a really interesting background. Tell us about your craft. What do you think your craft, or how would you define your craft?
At this point, I kind of lost it along the way, but I started off, working in the construction industry, come from a family of contractors, a couple generations down. So got my engineering license, got my contractor's license. And from when I graduated college, spent 7 years working in the construction field as a project manager and operations manager, worked both in the field and in the office, back end estimating, and eventually found myself working internationally in the GCC, consulting on projects all over the Middle East, Saudi, Qatar, the UAE, and helping contractors improve their document management systems, their workflows, RFI processing, shop drawing reviews, etc. So kind of that heavy engineering background is really where I kind of got started until 2017, I believe, when Classic WoW was announced at BlizzCon. Classic WoW was a game that I grew up playing, absolutely loved, and I've had my eye on the content creation field for a long time. I just never had the guts to really pursue it, just because it was such a big risk. But when Classic WoW was announced, I decided, you know what, it's now or never. I love this game. I'm passionate about it. I'd love to make content about it. And so I started a YouTube channel. And 4 years later, running OTK pretty much on the back end.
That's amazing. So, I'm just looking through your bio. Can you talk more about the Classic Duelers League? Like, why did you come up with that format? Because I would say, in the grand scheme of competitive gaming or tournaments, I know that WoW has always had like a history with like Arena, but why did you decide? What was CDL focused on, like WoW Classic, but Arena?
Primarily, it was actually originally focused on Classic WoW dueling, and the idea really came from a number of different places. But back in original vanilla World of Warcraft, I used to host dueling tournaments all of the time outside of the Warsong Gulch portal, which is where you could access battlegrounds. You couldn't queue from cities, at least in the beginning of vanilla. You had to actually go to the portal, which for the Horde side was the Northern Barrens. And as a result, you'd have the entire server community consolidated to this really small space, waiting for their matches to pop. And so everyone was out there, you had nothing to do. So just started getting a couple of buddies. We started dueling, started putting gold down on the duels. You get more people involved. And then all of a sudden you're running, 16 player tournaments, just for fun. So starting the CDL was kind of a callback to those roots. I love organizing. I love bringing people together, putting on exciting events. But I started taking it more seriously after I put on a small dueling tournament during the Classic WoW demo. When Classic WoW was announced, before the beta, Blizzard put out a 2 or 3 day demo experience where I believe you could level to like level 19 in the Barrens and just experience, the first few hours of gameplay. Everyone was consolidated. Everyone was in the Barrens. So just like back in the day, got a few buddies together. We started dueling. And I thought to myself, you know what, let's host a tournament, see how it goes. And to my surprise, we had 10,000 people watching concurrently on Twitch. I think my friend Asmongold ended up hosting the tournament as well. So all of a sudden, there was this significantly sized tournament in the World of Warcraft community, which is a very underserviced community when it comes to events. And lo and behold, it's fun to watch. And that's the beauty about dueling. It's a lot easier to follow a 1v1 than it is to follow a 3v3. And I think that's really where, the potential started to get recognized. Wait a minute, 3v3, sometimes it's a bit difficult to follow, but 1v1, you catch all the action. It's very personality centric because it's just one person versus another. And that ended up being a great experience. So I followed it up with a couple more tournaments.
So that's amazing. I mean, I was just looking at, I know that Twitter isn't the starting date of when you started CDL, but just looking at some of your content there, I mean, it looks super cool. You're like way into it. I saw that engagement kind of started off with like 1 or 2 likes, and then it got a lot more. You're wearing like a suit in front of like a green screen. It's amazing. It just kind of reminds me of this thought that just like consistency and committing to something and making content is like not everyone can make it, but if you don't do it, you can't make it either. So it's just it's amazing that you pursued your dreams and you got here. So so you did the CDL, and then what was next? Like did that naturally turn into OTK, or it was like a separate opportunity that popped up?
For sure. Well, there were a couple of steps before the CDL. So if you're all right with that, I can go back to the beginning.
Please. Yeah, please do.
So originally I started the YouTube channel in November 2017. My thoughts were, I'm just going to make content that I love surrounding this game that I love and kind of see where it goes. Wasn't expecting it to turn into a full-fledged career. But after a couple of videos, again, my friend Asmongold happened to pull up one of my videos on stream. He didn't know me. I didn't know him at the time. And after watching that video of mine on stream, all of a sudden my channel started to get a tremendous amount of traction. And so I started producing videos more frequently, staying up late at the office after long days in the field. And steadily, slowly but surely, the channel started to grow. So as the channel started growing, a friend of mine who's also on OTK, SFan TV, at the time, he was streaming unsanctioned World of Warcraft private servers. And as a result, he got banned by Blizzard, and he was in a really difficult spot. Again, at the time, I didn't know him. I just knew him as a content creator, not as a friend. So lo and behold, I'm making content. SFan's banned. I figure, you know what? Why don't we start a podcast? Let's start a podcast about Classic WoW. We both love this game. Maybe get a couple of other people involved. He says, yeah, you know what? My friend Stay Safe and I have been talking about this for a long time. Let's do it. So a couple of months into content creation, all of a sudden we're making a podcast. And at the time, no one else was really making a vanilla World of Warcraft podcast, which as a result, skyrocketed all of our platforms. After that, SFan started streaming on Twitch, which, kind of inspired me to stream on Twitch as well, continue growing from there. And again, as we became more, notable members in the community, that's where CDL began. So YouTube to ClassicCast to streaming to CDL tournament organizing, and then from there it was really just trying to gain as much industry experience as possible. What I knew going into streaming, or what I was able to weigh very heavily, was the fact that all entertainers have a shelf life. It doesn't matter if you're Taylor Swift or Kanye West or whoever it is. There's an invisible timer on the top of your head that's ticking down every single day. And when it hits 0, you're no longer popular. And what's incredibly dangerous about this in the content creation space, and all entertainment in general, but specifically in content creation, is the more time you spend behind your computer streaming, gaming, etc., the less time you spend acquiring tangible skills. And eventually, if you stick to it for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, and then all of a sudden there's no more future in it, you're left in a hyper-competitive job marketplace without any skills, without any experience, with a big question mark on your resume for the past 5 years. It's very scary. So the CDL was my way of saying, you know what? I enjoy doing what I'm doing as an entertainer, but I want to make things a little bit more professional, and I want to secure my future. One day I'm going to be boring. One day people aren't going to watch me anymore. Let me take the time to develop and cultivate relationships in the industry, meet with brands, meet with organizations, meet with developers, because one day after this tournament is over, I'm sure I'm going to rub shoulders with somebody that's going to say, hey, you know what? That Tips guy, he's a hard worker. He did the CDL thing. It went great. We worked with him. Let's work with him in the future in the capacity of some other position. So really CDL, as much as it was a passion project for me, there was also the secondary objective of meeting cohorts in the industry and putting my foot in the industry for when, that fateful day came when I kind of hung up my content creator cleats. So that was one of the motivations behind it.
That is such a good story. I think, especially me being a gamer, a fan of streamers and esports orgs, I always think about like TSM because that's one of the first teams I rooted for. And I was thinking about like some of like the OG TSM players like the Odd One or Dyrus. And I think the Dyrus is still around, but the Odd One, he's kind of, I mean, he's been around for, I mean, once again, there's like a timer, and I think his like fame and his fandom has kind of decreased a bit. And I have no idea what he's doing, and I wish him the best. But I think it's super spot on for you to think about things beyond just your individual like content production. So on that topic, I think what's interesting is, so you are the CEO of OTK, but once again, whether it's because someone just, you got lucky with someone sharing your content or not, your YouTube channel has some good videos. Like you put effort into it. So how did you become essentially, how did you get into the craft of video editing?
So I had absolutely no experience whatsoever. I'm not like a tech hobbyist or anything like that. Webcams, OBS, all that stuff completely foreign to me. I never made, gaming videos growing up as a passion project. So fortunately, we live in a generation, in my opinion, or in a time where it's never been easier to succeed. It's also never been easier to fail because of the number of distractions we have. But there are so many resources, abundant, free, concise, educational, all over the internet, on your phone, etc., that can help you learn any skill, any trade. So when it came to video editing, I opened up YouTube. How do I edit videos? What software should I use? What should my PC specs be? What camera should I use? I just went through it, video after video after video, learned what OBS was, learned how to, use an Elgato Cam link, how to plug in your camera, your DSLR, and all that stuff, and really just took it from there one step at a time. You don't learn it overnight. Your first video is usually your worst video, but if you stay at it, stay consistent, work hard, make some sacrifices, while my friends were out partying, having a good time, what was I doing? I was sitting at this freaking computer trying to learn how to edit videos. Which, in the construction industry, it's like people were question marking me all the time. Obviously, my family was like, "What are you doing? What is this?" But eventually, kept at it long enough, and it started to pay off.
So I think once again, it was your hard work, but you're one of the successful ones. But also, I think part of your philosophy, which I like, is kind of like hedging your bets and like, making sure you're taking care of yourself. So let's say, this is a comment or a question probably a lot of our producers for this show have as well, which is they are, starting off early in their career, and they can do anything. I mean, they're all gamers. They love gaming. Like, what should they do? We have one, like, Jimmy's in college, like Josh just graduated, starting his first job, and Austin's later into his career. But like for different stages of your life, like what can you do to kind of figure out what's going to work out best for you? Is it like, hey, doing some video editing here, maybe trying to do some tournament organizing there? What are some paths? Maybe, once again, you have kind of like a successful path, but what are some maybe middle of the ground opportunities you've seen work out for people?
So I guess it fundamentally depends on your goal. What is your goal? Is your goal to start an esports organization, an influencer network? Is your goal to get into game development? It kind of depends on where you want to end up. But for me, the path that I kind of saw that I still think is widely available to so many people is finding underserved communities and delivering some form of value. Why did my YouTube channel grow? I'm not a great content creator. I'm not a great video editor. I had no idea what I was doing at the time, but I was really one of the few, like literally the 2 or 3 people on the entire planet that was making videos pertaining to Classic WoW, guide videos, informational videos, educational videos, at a time when this massive game was returning, and nobody knew much about it because it occurred when in the pre-information age, 2004, we didn't have all this information, the social media and stuff like that. So I saw the opportunity of making content around a game that I loved that I knew would serve the community. And whenever I've kind of had that as my guiding philosophy, finding underserved communities, it's always worked out. Why did the CDL work out? Again, I'm not like a great caster, a great analyst, a great tournament organizer. These are all new skills for me at the time. But I found the opportunity to serve a community that didn't have any events going on, didn't have any tournaments going on. And so no matter who put those tournaments out, and others tried to do it too, usually they were pretty successful because again, what other content is out there serving this community? So I guess, something that you don't hear too often is trying to find a game or a lane or something where you can put in your value immediately because there's a massive void. And I'll give you some examples. Super Smash Brothers is a community that, you've got just a handful of tournaments serving that community. And as a result, those tournaments are really big, really popular. The community loves them. RuneScape, another great example. It's an older game, so a lot of people overlook it, underserved community. But what happens when people come into this space and make tournaments? They're usually pretty darn successful. And the great part about it, because you're not competing with massive TOs or massive organizations, you can get away with hosting something like a $500 tournament, a $1,000 per tournament, where you don't have to break your own bank as somebody who's trying to, come into the scene. So for all of those, dreamers out there, people that, are trying to break into gaming, my general advice would be find an underserved community in a particular game, in a particular esport, wherever it is, and see if you can bring some value to that community. Because you'll find that if you do, they'll be very quick to support you, especially if you do a good job, and you'll make your way.
So it seems like finding an underserved community is a great way to start. But now that you're in your position, how do you decide what creators to hire, let's say, or recruit for OTK?
That's a good question. So in terms of OTK, just context of the organization, we're a talent-owned and operated organization. We have 7 stakeholders in the business, all of whom are content creators or former content creators. And so every major strategic decision, while many are brought up by me, they're made collectively as a group. And we kind of rely on everyone's personal experience, wisdom, et cetera, in the field to kind of make these decisions. So basically, I can't speak on behalf of everyone's opinion on what criteria they look at when we bring on talent, but from an organizational standpoint, one of the common metrics we look at is this someone that's cool? Is this someone that's fun? Is this someone that's entertaining? Is this someone that vibes well with the group? And it's a very difficult thing to really understand because it's intangible. We don't really look at viewership numbers. We don't really look at, your sub count. We don't look at your YouTube numbers. That's fine and dandy in some cases, but for us, that's just a means to put you on the map. And once you're on our map, once you're on our radar, it's really about who you are as a person. Can I see myself, rolling up with you, going to hang out IRL, chilling at a barbecue, shooting the shit? And I think that's kind of the sentiment from the whole gang is, can we bring on people that are interesting and fun to be around? Because the way content is nowadays, there's the individual content creator, but really things have shifted more into group content. And usually when group content is natural, it's authentic, it's just a couple of people hanging around having a good time, usually it's well received.
That's such a good point because one of my follow-up questions was, how do you build up talent from scratch? And the analogy I have is, when I used to work at Amazon, we were making games that frankly no one has heard of. It's like a brand new game, new IP. And we were always thinking about like, how do we, if we have like some distribution, and in this case it was Twitch, how could we leverage Twitch to kind of like key make us? By the way, Twitch said no because they don't want to key make anybody, or at least not for Amazon. So but for you guys, do you find success in, let's say, having like a bigger streamer somehow host or do something with the smaller streamer? And even though they're group content, do the quote unquote smaller streamer benefit that much more?
Sometimes, yeah, and that's totally fine. I mean, I think, and if I don't know too much about the history of like film or Hollywood entertainment or anything like that, but if I had to take a guess, I would assume that Twitch today is very similar to how Hollywood was back in the 1930s, 1940s, and beyond Twitch, content creation in general, where there's not a whole lot of rules. Nobody really knows what's going on. There's a lot of different formula, a lot of different meta. Nothing's really set in stone. So one of the opportunities this, I guess this whimsy allows for is it allows for creators to work together with kind of no holds barred. And when you have that opportunity, that rising tide raises all ships, as they say. So yeah, sure, we could potentially collab with somebody as OTK who's a smaller streamer who might have a lot more to benefit from us collaborating with them than we do, or from us collaborating with them than we do with them. Um, but maybe one day that person becomes a big content creator, and maybe one day we get less popular. And so long as we kind of come into it with genuine friendship in mind and establishing a long-term relationship, then for us, their growth is our growth, whether it's directly or indirectly. Because again, next time they want to do an event, we're happy to participate. It might help us out a little bit too. And I feel like you can do this now in this era of content creation, but perhaps in the future at some point things get a little bit more tight, locked up, more agencies and management gets involved that you can't do this. So we try to capitalize on it while it's available.
So you mentioned making a podcast earlier. By chance, have you ever listened to or currently listen to the All In podcast?
I can't say
Ever
that
heard
I
of them?
have, no.
Okay. It's anyways, check it out later. The reason I mention it is because I think it's like a business podcast, but their angle is friendship, which once again, I'm not like a music expert, but I don't think there are that many podcasts built around friendship. Like that was the original thesis. Now, after time, some co-hosts could become friends, but it starts off as a business relationship. Anyways, the reason I mentioned this is because there's like a cool thing here, maybe like a theme here where I feel like you guys clearly are a business and a successful one based on some of the stats you've shown me. And the key to success isn't as kind of boring as some traditional similar type companies where it's just about like stats and like subscribers and viewership and like getting more and more. I love your philosophy around just like, hey, like it's gotta be fun, potential friendship involved. That angle seems super cool, which brings me to my next question. So that's kind of like the philosophy of OTK, which is different than other organizations. How would you put a label on OTK versus, let's say, a big esports org, which have streamers, but they also have like other divisions and teams?
For sure. So, in our traditional like sales deck that we send out to brands, we call ourselves an influencer network and production company. For us, the way we look at it is we're content creators that are as genuine as they come, and we look for other content creators who are as genuine as they come, that are cool to hang out with, and we take all our content creators and we put on good content. We're in the business of genuine content creators and good content. So, how that differentiates us from esports org is, well, number one, we don't really have an esports team or an esports arm in particular. And for us, we're less focused on competitive gaming and more focused on the gaming lifestyle. And I think that's something that, esports can convey, but sometimes, that vibe, that lifestyle gets lost in the competitiveness of it. For us, it's really about, we're a group of friends that have been through this big journey together for the past 4 or 5 years. And, now that we've gotten a little bit older, hopefully a little bit wiser, although I'm not sure sometimes, we're kind of looking to make our mark in the scene. And so we came together in the spirit of friendship, in the spirit of camaraderie, started an organization. And for us, it's important to radiate those roots to the audience. We're here, we're having fun, playing games together. It's a lifestyle, it's who we are. When this camera goes off, we're the same as when it's on. And for us, that kind of cultivates, in our opinion, a lot more, authentic of a brand, which results in a lot more of a loyal community. And, you know, for us, having that community is really the start of the magic. And that's how we're able to, you know, build awesome shows, build awesome content. When you have a supportive community, anything's possible. And I feel like with esports, that loyalty comes from the competition and succeeding as a team, um, which is very difficult for a lot of reasons. And it's very difficult for somebody to kind of break into that. Versus with us, it just starts with just being a regular dude or a regular gal, and just playing games, having a good time.
Awesome. So since you're in the influencer slash creator world, I want to ask your opinion about this term, the creator economy. It's like a buzzword. Do you think there's actually like what does that word mean to you? Because I think one thing that really resonated with me, like a mood I'm feeling with you, is things seem to be like simple and direct and authentic. Like you just explain what your org does. You don't need like 50 slides to talk about that. So what is it, creator economy? Is it just something like big companies like they create this word to like make things more complex? What do you think?
I mean, personally, I hate buzzwords. I'm not a fan. I don't really keep up with them too much. Um, we live in a very interesting age. As it pertains to advertising. Back in the day, you'd see an ad in the paper, you'd see an ad maybe on TV, maybe a billboard, and that was really brands' only way of reaching wider audiences. And of course, you have the peer-to-peer, which is the most powerful form of marketing. Nowadays, with social media, with these platforms like Twitch and YouTube, most strongly, in my opinion, on Twitch, you have influencers that are able to connect with their audience on such a deep level that they become their peers. And now all of a sudden you have the most powerful form of marketing, peer to peer, working on a large scale, which is insane to think. So I think a lot of businesses, a lot of brands are trying to understand what's going on. You know, how are these influencers making so much money or being so effective? And so maybe they try to understand it through, buzzwords and trying to define what's going on. But in my opinion, it's very simple. Human beings love one thing above all else, and that's other human beings. If they can find someone that they relate to, that they see themselves in, that they admire, that's their favorite person on the face of the earth, and they love spending time with them. So when that happens, when you have a platform that enables that parasocial relationship, then it becomes really easy for one of those individuals to tell the other individual, hey, I've been using this product, or I've been playing this game, or using this service. You should check it out. And that person who's really invested in this relationship will be far more inclined to go and do just that, buy the product, purchase the service, play the game, and all of a sudden you've got incredible conversion rates. And I guess you can call it the creator economy, the age of the influencer, whatever it is. To me, it's really people just being connected more closely to individuals they may not have been able to get connected with in the past. And it's just an extension of peer-to-peer marketing, just on a larger scale.
Once again, as I said, I think you're really good at oversimplifying fake complex topics. Okay, my final question to you is kind of going back to the kind of main topic of this podcast is craft. How do you know when you have become a master of your craft? And we mentioned kind of like building an influencer network, which for you, OTK is defined in different ways than other companies. What would you think? What is success for you, and or OTK? If it's the same, maybe it's different. And how do you see your craft pertaining to that? Like, how do you know you're a master at your craft and therefore you have succeeded?
So I don't think there is such thing as a master of anything. Life is far too short for us as human beings to be able to completely know the ins and outs of any subject, in my opinion. Whether it's content creation, whether it's engineering, mathematics, science, anything, we just don't have the capacity in our very short biological lifespans to really become masters. And I think even perceiving ourselves as masters or as very adept at something is negative because it takes away that drive and that incentive to grow. So for me personally, I've been doing this for a few years now. I was working in the construction industry for about 7 years before this. Um, I don't think I've ever mastered anything, except maybe, maybe getting out of bed in the morning. That's probably the closest thing I've come to master. So I don't think you can ever really know. I think we're learning every day. And even if you're able to learn everything there is to know about, a subject in a certain period of time, well, times are always changing. The industries are changing. The world is changing. So there's always going to be more to learn. Um, what was your first question? I'm sorry, I forgot what it was.
I was trying to connect between, once you know if you are a master of the craft, how does that lead or connect to like being successful? Like what is personal success for you? What is OTK success?
For sure. Personal success for me right now is figuring out what just turned off my monitors. There we go. All right, sweet. Um, you know, uh, I'm getting older every day. I think we all are. And success is a word that from year to year really gets redefined, in my opinion, and my expectations for success change. I'm very blessed to be married to a wonderful woman. We had our son 7 months ago. And for me, success is just making sure they're happy, having a good time, living a better life than I lived, and making sure we're staying close with our family, friends, trying to be the best people we can be, and using whatever career it is to kind of enable that lifestyle. Um, so I'm a pretty simple person, as it pertains to the org. My definition of success is what the guy is fulfilling, my friends' expectations, my colleagues' expectations. If they say, hey Tibbs, we need to sell this amount of ad inventory this year, we need to hire this amount of individuals, we need to promote this amount of brands, um, we need to host this many events, that's my metric of success. If they're happy, I'm happy at the end of the day. Very blessed to be in the position that I'm in, working with wonderful people, working in an industry that everyone told me was impossible to get into, that it was a waste of time, that you're just playing games all day, all that stuff. So I'm just very happy to be here. And so long as everybody that's affected by my actions around me is happy by my actions, then that's the success I need.
You sound like, no offense to our previous or future guests, but you sound like one of our happiest guests. And I think it's like a extension of your philosophy, which sounds like you're like a lifelong learner. Um, but I would say that I do think you're clearly doing something right, and maybe it's too much to like label yourself as a master. But I think even in the brief time I've known you, just a couple of hours, I think you've demonstrated that you are in my opinion, like a master of like self-awareness, self-understanding, humility, and look, building an influence network, an organization of creators is not easy, and much less yourself. So I think mad props to you and your team for doing all this and doing it, in my opinion, like the right way. You kind of hear these terms in movies all the time, where like, when I watch I watch some like the sports championships, maybe not like the regular season, but always like the playoffs and the championships. And people always talk about like, oh yeah, they built this team the right way. And I kind of get that like feeling and mood from you. So, once again, thanks so much for taking your time and sharing all these ideas. And I dare say wisdom with us.
Honestly, thank you for having me on, Jonathan. It's just, um, you mentioned it, and I couldn't echo it more. I didn't build OTK. I'm just another cog in the wheel at the end of the day. It's this fantastic team. We've got great guys: Asman, Miz, Esfan, Nick, Rich, Schlatt. We've got our staff behind the scenes: Sinak, Christina, Peckies, Jacob, Finn, Ashley. Everybody behind the scenes. I forgot a couple of people, but I hope they forgive me. Um, yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's just when you find the right people, and the goals are aligned, and people don't feel like every day is a struggle, or every day they could risk losing their job, and just create that comfortable environment. Magic things happen, especially in the entertainment industry. If you're not comfortable in entertainment, man, you're never going to put out good content. And we're very lucky in that. I think the team recognizes that, so we take it easy, one day at a time. And you know we're fortunate to have arrived where we have, and we look forward to the future. And thank you, honestly, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for bringing me on. I really appreciate it.
No, maybe I was gonna say thank you for coming because I think just like your way of life really resonates with me, and I have to just follow up with one more thought, which probably you'll agree with this. So when I was at Riot Games, I forgot, I was like a CEO, the president. They always said, you can't make fun unless you're having fun, and that's why we, even today, probably, people who work at that studio, they could play games in the office. They could play a lot of it. They even have their own like PC
Yeah.
bong in there. And when I worked at other different companies, it was a completely different mood. Like people stopped working at like 5 or 6 p.m. and they went home. Frankly, half the people even play games, but they're working in games, and some of them look miserable, right? It's about hitting like deadlines and milestones. And once again, look, it's great to be in this position where you're not worried about that. Like you're financially stable, like your product is doing well, and you can afford to have that space for creativity and peace. So I think everything you just said is a big lesson learned I had in game development as well.